Okay, we're back.
So,
Wow, we have mastered technology.
more or less. When I was thinking about which character to do, I did immediately go to the Plague Doctor because he's awesome. And then I went to your blog and I saw an amazing painting of it. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if I want to try that comparatively.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I got this guy drawn up though for the Plague Doctor.
Oh shit!
And then I moved on. I tried the Grave Robber,
Nice.
but then I tried the Occultist.
Holy cow! So you just did everyone.
Well,
Whoa.
yeah, I wanted to do a good job. We'll see. So what do you guys think? Which one would you want me to?
Let's
my
just
God.
let's just
Let's
quickly
ask the
ask
chat. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We'll have to wait a little while then.
Dun, dun, dun.
And the plague doctor's actually a lady.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you should do all three, really.
That's a good designer right there.
Yep.
It's like it's our job to keep them heavily scoped.
So the
Yeah.
first person voted grave robber. I say we go with that.
Okay, that is the one that's probably the least figured out drawing, which is why you leave it up, what happens when you
Well,
when you leave it up there.
Come
Dive
Democracy
in.
bite
You have
in the
so
ass
much
again.
detail in the occultist too. Oh man.
I know.
then do the occultist. Do what you feel comfortable with.
Okay, we'll do the Occultist. And then people say all three, so we'll see how that goes. So when I was thinking about doing it in a Starcrawler style, I mean, one of the big differences is, we're painting a lot of things, which, after seeing, Darkest Dungeon when I kickstarted right before ours, and I looked at the art, and I was like, oh man, I'm really not very smart. I should have done something where I didn't have to paint everything. But here we go. So,
That's cool.
George, you want to start asking them some questions about Darkest Dungeon?
Heck yeah. So the occultist, was he one of the original classes, or was he added in partway through the Kickstarter?
I'm trying to remember.
I'm trying to remember too.
You know what? The classes thing are constant confusion even to us because we had this huge list of ideas, and then we were sort of like, down selecting, and then we were doing a little bit of juggling even during the Kickstarter, just because it was kind of fun to see what people responded to and things like that. But we've always known we wanted to have. I mean, the cult is a theme within the game with all the Lovecraftian type stuff. So we knew there had to be some touching on it in there, and I just can't remember at one point we announced him.
He was definitely on the later side
Yeah,
because we did a live stream, which are I feel like it was the last one, right, or second last one.
we were playing with genders a bit too because we wanted to make sure that both genders were represented. We weren't strictly necessarily aiming for half or whatever. We just kind of wanted it to feel a little bit natural about who should be what. But there was some stuff at the end there. A lot, like any of the classes could go either way. So I think we were really tossing up whether the occultist should be female or male. But then we sort of settled on this. A bit of in this case, I think a little bit stereotypical Abdul al-Hazrat or whatever from
Nice.
Lovecraftian is definitely the inspiration. So giving a little nod to that.
Okay. So when you guys were setting out, did you think about archetypes first that you wanted to have and then develop all their abilities afterwards? Or were you more thinking it'd be cool if somebody could do this, and then you were like, oh, let's build a character around that?
We're definitely in general starting with theme and then letting the mechanics kind of sort it out, because obviously like you can end up getting into trouble if you just have too much of the same thing. So that's kind of where having a big list of the ideas is really handy. And then as we settled on ones that we were for sure doing, then it became clear like, okay, we really need to make sure, like we don't want to end up with 75% front rank specialists or something.
Right.
But in this case, we definitely the Occultist is kind of fun because we've had the most varied ideas about him, and even now we haven't totally settled on his abilities. We've had all kinds of very straightforward but cool ideas of curses and buffs and debuffs and things. But then also just really weird stuff like, what if he turns into a demon for 5 minutes, and ridiculous, or can summon all these things that reach up from the ground and pull the enemies down and things. And so we've been trying to figure out just how crazy to make them.
Awesome. As long as he's not opening portals, because I think we're doing that. So we thought of it first, okay?
All right, fair.
We will give
he
you
might-
a portal
I mean-
shout out.
He might summon some things briefly, but there won't be any like teleporting around or anything.
So artistically, Chris just stepped out, but how did you guys actually arrive at the style? Because I've seen a lot of Chris's other art on his site, and it's very like detailed and highly rendered. How did you decide to go for like the graphical contrasty?
Oh man, I could answer, but I think I should let him answer when he gets back.
I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Being the
cool.
armchair artist.
Well, like Asa said, it was kind of motivated by that. Like I've been an art director for long enough that I knew that, and I know my weaknesses, and I knew that I would never finish a single piece of art if I was trying to do it the best I could every time. Like if I was trying to render every dungeon tile and paint up every character to be really, really, what I consider to be great, I'll never finish anything. So I wanted to create a style that functionally I could at least judge it as being consistent with the rest of the work. So my art director brain could approve it, and my flaky artist brain could just get over it. So pragmatically, also you change the color of your line. I do that too when I'm painting. That's hilarious. That's kind of pragmatically where it came from, and then visually, we wanted to create this kind of old school, like almost like a moving illuminated manuscript or an old scroll, a really flawed, rough-looking kind of style that would reinforce the values of the game design and the mechanics and that kind of thing. So we're trying to get something that would accomplish, be production friendly and also sort of reinforce the message of the game, the tone of the game, I guess.
Yeah, I know we settled on. I mean, the fact that it's a very gothic theme game, but also we were playing around with. Cartoonish might not be the right word exactly, but we were kind of playing around with that from the beginning too.
Yeah.
The fact that the game is full of all these horrible stuff, the things that are happening, and really, gosh, when we conceptualized the game, we had some even worse stuff happening. It was gonna be a game where literally there was no holds barred. But I think drawing them in such a way that they had a little bit of cuteness was something that Chris was pushing for from the beginning, and it is kind of a cool contrast. Just like these melodramatic things happening to them, but the fact that they're slightly cute also just keeps it. I wouldn't go so far as to say they're like crazy over the top cute. It's just we didn't want you to be depressed playing the game at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's the same way that you can enjoy overwrought like pulp language. Like it's almost funny how romantic they are about awful things. They're just so descriptive and flowery with everything. And it takes the edge off and it makes it entertaining to read, and it's almost like a little tongue in cheek. So we wanted to make our guys just a little bit of that dash of that social game kind of cuteness, just to remind you that it's kind of weirdly funny that these guys are so upset and so depressed and having such a hard time in their like cute little world sort of thing.
I do like
That's awesome.
On your website there's there's one of the guys and he's sitting down. He looks very depressed and sad, but he's so cute being there. Sad
Yeah, exactly. It's like having a little ant farm, and you're like, oh, are you guys having a rough day?
Shake,
yeah.
shake.
But they take it super seriously, right? So for them, it's like literally the end of everything.
That's cool. I think we actually had a similar approach when we were developing our characters too, because we, like Asa said, we didn't want to make a game that was super serious, hard sci-fi. But we have some serious stuff in there. People are killing each other, and you're exploring these creepy abandoned wrecks. But we felt that it was more fun when we made the characters more exaggerated, and like the robots have these weird, crazy shapes, and our character silhouettes are really pushing the limits of reality. So I think that's really cool.
That's kind of like you want to work on you want to work in a way that you have fun too. So if you kind of feel like the theme is getting really overbearing and swallowing you up, and you're not enjoying the work, then it'll show through, I think. So it's good to be able to massage your style into something that you enjoy doing day to day. Depression Core says that the Crusader looks like the Dark Souls character. I think we've heard that a lot. Wasn't actually straight up intentional. I played Dark Souls, and I actually did play the Knight. But when I was little, I had a Lego man. I was the only kid that I knew that had this one Lego man that had that Knight helmet, and so it was always my favorite. So that's why it's in there.
Was it your favorite because of your individuality?
It's hard to really. I thought it was awesome, and I thought I was awesome for having it, and I can't separate those two emotions in hindsight.
So how did you guys start and come up with the idea for Darkest Dungeon?
Tyler and I have known each other a really long time, and we worked together a few times, and then our careers kind of took us to different studios, and we were always friends and played poker, and we were always trying to talk about a project we could both do and do really well. So we had all these crazy ideas, like a choose your own adventure book and like all sorts of stuff over the years, and it was fun to talk about for a night or two, but didn't really stick. And then we were kind of just joking around about how a lot of modern RPGs, they celebrate the ideal of being a hero and, giant shoulder pads, and actually it would be really, really shitty to have this life and to be in this position and to, day in and day out grind out murder for money and survive these awful environments. And I think we were a couple of scotches in, and we were just like laughing and kind of making fun of some games that we actually really loved. But then we kind of just developed it from there, like just that premise of, what if we looked at dungeon crawling, a little bit more realistically, quote unquote, and just kind of went from there. And unlike the other ideas that flamed out after a couple of sessions, this one kind of just kept growing.
Yeah, there's that bit of Schadenfreude plus other stuff. Or Schadenfreude, excuse me, but just thinking about these bad things that could happen, and then how do you manage it? And it was fun to think of, like, as soon as we realized that the idea of bad things happening could be linked to interesting game mechanics, that's what I think kept it going, because we'd say, oh, what if they had to, what if they got afraid and then wouldn't fight? And that's an easy one, of course, but the different afflictions and quirks, and then how that might tie into how you're managing the party, and then what they're doing in town. And, we just really, it was a fertile ground where it was really easy to come up with more and more ideas every time we talked. So that, that really was fun, and just felt like there was something there. Plus, we both love RPGs, and we were inspired by a lot of classic ones. So we talk about how, I've always wanted to make an Ultima-like, and all these different things, and so we explored the idea of doing this in a lot of different ways. Like, we settled on sort of the side-on view, but we really explored a lot of different stuff first. And I think just knowing that we wanted to do an RPG, and then we felt like we had a good thematic hook, if you will. So it just gained momentum.
Because that was a couple of years ago. And even then, there was a lot of pixel, top-down, genuine roguelikes hitting the market, and didn't really want to do something exactly like that, because there are so many that have done it so well. It's kind of daunting to draft behind, those successes. So we wanted to have something that had a bit more of an identity, that we could kind of chart our own course, I guess.
It is funny that I feel like when we started talking about it, it wasn't quite as widespread. Like, this whole wave where just so much love and reverence is being heaped upon the old nostalgic games again, meaning like, the games of the, mid to late 80s and early 90s, I feel like, has gotten really big in the last year or two here. But I'm not trying to say we were ahead of the curve. I think what's interesting is that there was, now it's become clear there was so many people feeling the same thing. Like, I don't know if it's the, not backlash, but sort of a rejection of where AAA had gone and how games had gotten just so big. And, there's just so many different independent developers who have kind of gone back to their childhood games now and mine those for information and want to remake those, but with today's technology and kind of game design sense. And so it felt really interesting at the time, because we're like, yeah, this would be like a lot of those classic games, like the Rogues and the RPGs, the gold boxes and the Ultimas and Bard's Tales. And, and then it's kind of funny because now a couple years later, and, we're still in development, but there's been so many games that have come out that have obviously, been made similarly, and it's definitely, it seems to be the zeitgeist of like where game
things are
development's
at.
at.
I mean, you guys at Starcrawlers, you're ostensibly doing the same thing. Like you're finding those classic RPG influences. It just felt like a whole bunch of industry people almost around the same 2-3 year period decided, hey, what if we did our own thing and we looked backwards,
Yeah, totally. And I think part of it too is whenever, and I'm sure you guys too, when you talk about games that you played back in the day, it's definitely through the lens of when I was there and I was experiencing it. It was really exciting. But if you fire up some of those now, like we obviously did a lot of research on dungeon crawlers, and we were like, oh, let's go check out all these old games we used to play. And it's really hard now with all the advances in like game design and just technology. Obviously, you play it and like the flaws are so apparent. Like, why would you have your UI take up 90% of your screen, and then there's a tiny box where you can actually see the dungeon? But technical limitations and stuff. But we were like, we could totally revisit this and recapture this feeling of exploring these things and these things we felt when we were playing these games when we were younger. But make some smarter decisions now with all that we've learned, standing on other people's shoulders about good design principles and using latest technology and stuff.
The other thing for us is that we have Tony on our team, and he is so young that he's never played any of these games. So one of the things we have to do is continue making some of them so he knows what we're talking about. Like, we mentioned Ultima,
Yeah.
He's like, huh?
He's like, yeah, the Frisbee game. I love that game. Were you...
Yeah, I fall into the young.
Yeah, Kier's our
Sorry.
young guy.
He's
He's our token crazy guy. He'll like tweet at Shaq about our game. Like doesn't even care. Wild card, social media guy.
Tony tweeted at P. Diddy about our game, so
Yeah.
same kind of thing.
That's funny.
Through the looking glass, man. It's crazy.
Did P. Diddy do a crowdfunding video game in the following month?
No.
Yeah.
I think it's funny going back and playing the old ones. The UI is usually what kills you. You're absolutely right. Like,
Yeah.
but often some of the core systems are still pretty cool, and I think that in some ways they were, to me at least, they were just so much more creative and riskier with their mechanics because they could do it, because it was generally a small team making it with various amounts of oversight, as opposed to a $50 million game where you've just got to make sure that everything is thoroughly focus tested and kind of it's not that I'm not saying there's a lot of great design work going on there. That's not what I mean. But in the old games, you get really bad ones and really good ones and everything in between because people are just doing crazy things. They're not afraid to mix mechanics and try different things. And I think that stuff holds up. But yeah, unfortunately, the limitations and the UI is usually what breaks it.
I mean, I think something you said there is really interesting too. That like it was small teams. I think indie games are a lot more like old school development than they are like AAA development in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I think it's definitely that's the case. I mean, there's just a whole different structure to the decision making when you're a small team, and there's pluses and minuses. But I mean, I really love it because there's just so much more you can do. Like if you decide to do something, you just do it, and for good or bad. And we've worked on bigger games and in bigger companies and things like that. It's just different. You got to go about things. You've got to build consensus. You've got to sell it up the stream or across this, across the organization or so by necessity, it's just a completely different. And how many times, like I'm sure you guys have these moments, but I mean, we certainly do, where we're thinking about something going, are we completely off base here? Is this the stupidest idea we've ever made with this system or this mechanic? And that's kind of liberating to be able to question it like that. And sometimes you do it anyway, and then it ends up working out, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think you have those doubts in a giant game, and there's just as soon as doubt appears, then all of a sudden the organization's there's just so much more at stake, I guess. I don't know. And
I don't want to make this hate on AAA, but I mean, I do feel like so much AAA now is just remake something that's selling right this second, and we may be remaking old games in some way or going back to some of those things, but at the same time, it's like, you're saying there's different mechanics, there's different stuff, there's a game design that goes on there that can't happen in a big studio, because the budget is just so many millions of dollars.
It's like every couple of like 3 or 4 years, there's a big AAA game that does something different, and then afterwards there's like a glut of kind of copycats, I guess, for a little while, and then somebody else comes out of the woodwork and does something kind of different and interesting, and then like I mean when Halo first came out, I mean that's not even really a current example, but everyone's like, oh my god, vehicles in a first-person shooter, and then after that it was just never-ending slew of first-person shooters with vehicles.
Yeah, Halo was being made in what, like 98?
Oh.
Was it?
It was for the Mac first, wasn't it?
I know it was definitely computer first. Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah, because Bungie used to be like Mac developers.
Right.
All I remember is I remember watching videos for it when I was in college, so I feel like that had to be like late 90s. I graduated in 2000, so it had to be. Yeah.
Yeah, it must
I mean,
have been.
I think it's all like kind of timing based on the audience that's watching it. Because like for me, like my golden era ended up being 2007.
That was like last week.
I know, but like that, like I haven't been as excited since then.
Right.
But it's just how it ended up lining up. Like just because of the time of my life, like GTA 3, as amazing as it was, didn't really, or Ico didn't really hit me because I was too young to understand how crazy or good those games were, and I think it all just kind of like it's all time based.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it takes different skill sets. Like I think you have to be good with these giant games, but it's a different type of good. You have to be able to, be world class in the execution and the polish of, just think of like what goes into a Call of Duty to make the multiplayer work, right? And technology wise, the systems for the multiplayer play, and what we're doing is, it's like they're building jumbo jets and we're building the crazy Red Bull, stuff where you jump off the platform and some of them just sink right into the water and then some of them glide, but they
Hell
look
yeah.
ridiculous.
I definitely do think like the scope, like the bigger the scope is, the more the feel innovation kind of comes in. Like a game like Just Cause 2 is completely crazy from just like a grappling things to other things and jumping out of planes and all that stuff, but like kind of core like the core design loop doesn't really have that much design innovation. But it'd be hard for an indie team to make like a open world grappling hook game.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting though. Like the stakes, not the stakes, but the bar is kind of ever rising. Like even in the indie space now, you can see it. Like the games that sort of broke ground as indies. Now just doing something to that extent doesn't really get you noticed. Like the expectations constantly move upwards.
Mm-hmm.
At least it feels that way to me. That could just be me putting more pressure on myself every day, but.
I like watching people paint things in. It's kind of like sweeping. It's like you take out the dust, you move it. Like I'm enjoying watching you fill it in. It's very satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss working this way. It's like just color and value is just such a nice. It's a little bit more relaxing. I feel like the Darkest Dungeon stuff is so jarring, and it's like ink first, get it down. It's all these hard edges, and it feels a lot more. Aggressive with a workflow. Whereas like Asa, your stuff looks like you just build up value really gently over time, and you're like a wood elf doing this, and I'm like the.
This reminds me of miniature painting. Like what you're doing and your approach on this feels more like miniature painting.
It's interesting. It is kind of like miniature painting, this part. What I'm trying to do right now is I'm putting in some flats for some other areas. I'm using a lot of different, if you look over on the side, I'm using these different parts as masks to paint on. And I didn't used to paint this way, but as I've been, I used to paint mostly on one layer just for the fun of it, kind of, but as I'm doing this stuff, painting so many of them, it's good to set up a lot of this stuff early so you have it done.
I have a question about your painting style. Do you draw the guy looking at yourself to make sure you do a good job finishing the rest of them?
Oh no. So I started I like to try and get as much of it together at the same time as possible. Considering the time frame that we're dealing with here, I thought I'd do a little bit more on the face first, so it like looked kind of like something. It didn't come out great, but I'll probably go back to it in a second. I was actually getting a little frustrated, so I decided to go the rest of the body. But I do try and get in. Usually, I try and get in more of it at first before I start getting one part. If you get too detailed in one part, then I feel like a lot of times you start to lose like the overall feeling of it. You know.
Kind of get tunnel vision a little bit.
Yeah.
Because
I'm sorry. What?
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I find this is way more drawing me in just because I'm looking him in the eyes. And he's like looking right at me. It's like I'll make sure I gotta watch watch him.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think if you can get the eyes kind of facing you, like the characters really will start speaking to you directly, which is nice. But I don't know. It doesn't always. Sometimes that comes out and it looks like you did the same thing over and over again because they're all looking directly at you.
But you could just, once you're done, just change where they're looking.
That's true.
Hey,
Yeah,
look,
it's funny, like for Darkest Dungeon, none of the characters have eyes. Like I just black it out. They just have these overhanging brows that shade over their eyes, so you can never really tell where they're looking. And I want to make them look all sad and depressed, so.
hey, shout out to Obi Sin Kenobi, who's in the chat room.
Oh jeez.
Oh yeah.
She helps us out with much of our social media and stuff. And speaking of the chat room, just in case people don't know, feel free to ask questions. It's kind of wide open about Darkest Dungeon or Starcrawlers, not necessarily even about the art if you want to, but we're happy to keep...
There's like maybe you could ask me about this.
No. Actually, I'm really happy. I'm having a good time. I just more realized we're getting less questions than usual, so I thought I'd remind people they're welcome to ask questions.
I have a question, Tyler.
No, I'm not answering any. I was just.
Oh, you're not going to answer any of them.
Well, I was merely saying they could be asked, and then others would answer while I sit back and listen. Shoot, Kier, go.
Can you pre-order Darkest Dungeon?
Oh, come on.
Yes, you can. You can also probably pre-order
Starcrawlers.
Good job, Kier.
Set them up, you knock them down. The Fresh and Core is talking about the ancestor character, and that's pretty much nailed it. Like for our setup for the fiction, like I mean, you guys have got for Starcrawlers have got this amazing like lore, and we wanted to actually try and sidestep that a little bit for our game and keep it a little bit more abstract and kind of Twilight Zone-y. So it's kind of just like this Woodstock for assholes on your family plot. Like all this bad people have just converged on this spot for some reason, and your ancestor kind of got the ball rolling. And yeah, he had a life of excess. And what do you do when you've had any kind of material satisfaction you can get your hands on? You start rooting around in the cellar for Satan. So you just for kicks.
Yeah, it's the hedonic treadmill they call it.
Exactly.
Where like the more pleasure you get from something, then eventually that becomes your new baseline, and then you need more. So eventually, the only end of all those roads is Cthulhu, of course.
There should be a music festival called Woodstock for assholes.
I'd actually go to that one.
I got questions now.
Cool.
Is DD, which I'm going to assume is Darkest Dungeon, going to get a forum soon?
Very good question, Kier.
I don't know. We don't have any plans to do it like next week or the week after. I would love to. I'm actually kind of a little bit jealous of Starcrawlers in that regard. Just having like a nice landing spot for your community. But we don't have anything like lined up just yet. We're trying to just turtle a little bit and focus on the game itself. But I think
there's also lots of forums you could you can participate in that are for mini games, and you could start your Darkest Dungeon threads there.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody posts in the backer comment, I mean, there is a forum that somebody set up. I'm not sure. The last time I was there was maybe about a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not sure how active it is. But yeah, I mean,
I think eventually it is something we want to solve. We were kind of waiting to see if it might solve itself, and then also right now, we've got I mean, right now we're focusing a lot on development. You know, we did a lot of sort of marketing and stuff over the first few months of the year, and it's kind of a tough thing. This is the downside of maybe being a smaller team, is there's always some things that you really want to get to, but it comes down to prioritization. And we know that eventually we'll provide some more community outlets. And Kickstarter was great for that, you know, at the beginning. But we're just trying to sort of get a few things done on the development of the game first, rather than it's kind of something where you could end up spending all your time on those things. And we just want to make sure that we're staying on track with what we want to get done with the game itself.
Cool.
How's it been for you guys with your forums?
It's been pretty great.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm
Cool.
really glad we got our forums up when we did. We weren't planning on putting them up this early. We thought we'd wait until we got the game further along, and then people, as the Kickstarter started to run down, were, you know, kind of demanding it. And luckily we have Rocky here, and that is our web guru, and he got that up, figured it all out. So that was nice for us.
It's good, man. Got a Starcrawler's question. What's the release date for the next pre-alpha version of Starcrawlers?
Uh-oh. Spoilers. We're shooting for June 15th. Will be the next update for our pre-alpha backers. And I can also spoiler some of the systems that are going to be available that aren't right now. So, spoil away. So the first version we released, we wanted to focus on randomly generated side missions. They're not actually connected to anything with the main storyline, and we're actually going to keep the main storyline under wraps for as long as possible. But next iteration is going to have item generation for weapons, shields, armors, and accessories. So you'll be able to start playing around with all the different procedurally generated weapons, none of which have particle effects, which is something people have asked us about, but all the numbers are there. So you can start seeing how a shotgun feels different to use than a pair of pistols. The other thing that we're working on is serialization. So that's saving data in Unity. You should be able to save and load your progress. Right now, if you start a new mission, you're not going to save any of your leveling up or whatnot that you've been doing. And we've been working on traps. This is something I've just finished off today, actually, is security camera traps, which is kind of cool. That was actually one of our mini stretch goals for the Kickstarter. So we're going to have our first debut of those in the game, which is going to be pretty neat.
That's really cool.
Well, yeah, you guys are making some progress.
Let's see.
I got our first silly question.
Awesome.
Do you prefer crunchy or soft tacos? I'm going to answer this one first. I'm a soft tacos kind of guy because if I wanted crunchy tacos, I'd eat fucking nachos. You guys,
Did you just self high five? Is that what happened there?
no, it's Tyler's self high five. That's the kind of connection we have with each other.
No, that was a legitimate knee slap, and you know it's funny, but like that was a knee slap. I guess a knee slap is a real thing. I unconsciously did it, but
I wonder if they have e-slaps in Dota tournaments.
Wow. So you think basically tacos and nachos, or hard tacos and nachos are redundant then?
Well, no, I just think nachos are superior to hard tacos.
Oh, okay. So it's a dominated strategy.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I like a soft taco, but I mean, yeah, like I would say I'm probably a mixed strategy of 70% soft tacos, 30% hard shell tacos.
Oh, do you like ever
One of those
have
half fries, half salad guys, aren't you?
No,
You
not always.
get more fries and salad that way. Good move.
I never do business with a man who can't decide between fries and salad.
Well, you are doing business with
God damn it!
someone who does it.
I'm out. Ben Prunty was asking about the method for generating levels in Darkest Dungeon.
Oh yeah. So similar to maybe I don't know obviously exactly how you guys are doing in Starcrawlers, but it is procedural as well. And so there's different types of quests. So for example, a really simple one is kill a boss, and so a kill a boss quest is going to tend to have a different structure in terms of the level than say maybe something where you're searching out to find the 3 missing blanketies. But we're doing some cool stuff in terms of I think the topography of the maps will change a bit based on what region you're going on the quest. So Let's say you're going into the Warrens, it might be really closely packed with lots of rooms, whereas the Weald the pathways might be a little longer and things like that. Like they're going to function similarly, but we would like them to have a little bit of personality that matches the regions. And each quest is going to be probably like 20, 30 minutes. So it's kind of equivalent to, like we've been saying, like one or two roguelike levels. I mean, we're not actually dealing with stairs and stuff like that. It's going to be you go down, it's a single level with so many rooms and corridors, and you search out and try to accomplish the goal and then go back. But and then the population of like the monsters you encounter and the hazards you come up across, that's all specific to what region you're adventuring in. So again, the ruins or the Warrens or the cove and that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Another
question. They're apologizing if it's already been asked. They're probably Canadian. But is DD going to be shown at the Mega Booth during PAX Prime?
We're just going to apply like everybody else. I mean, we were lucky enough to get in there for PAX East. And when the applications open up, we're going to submit our build.
Yeah, I think it's either opening up really soon or something like that. And, you know, it's crazy how many awesome indie games are being put out there now. So we take nothing for granted. I mean, we're going to apply, and we had a great time in the Indie Mega Booth at PAX East. It was super awesome. So, you know, fingers crossed. But we definitely plan to have some sort of a presence at PAX either way.
Yeah. And also we knew it all gets announced at once. So you'll find out similarly to if we are in like what happened at PAX East, where there was the one day where everybody got announced.
Yeah, that's true. But nobody knows yet because the apps haven't opened up yet. So
yeah, questions are flying in now.
Awesome.
Do you think you have a character locked away and you can try to free them and join your group, but the could be broken and just attack you?
Okay, I have a character
like, can you find a character and then
which game?
Both?
Can you find guys in Starcrawlers? Like when you're adventuring around? I think you guys mentioned that there was like NPCs and stuff you could talk to. Can you playable classes too?
That's actually something we've been working on. So we wanted the Void Psyker and the engineer to be able to summon characters into your party, and the original system wasn't set up for that at all. When we got that working, we found out it was actually a pretty natural extension to add or remove NPCs from your party. So we're toying around with the idea of having events that are not planned out ahead of time, just part of the random event generation system, where you can actually have someone temporarily join your party in that fashion, like rescue them, and then they'll be like, oh, escort me out while you're on your way to do whatever else you're here
and
to
do
do.
they fight too? That's awesome.
Yeah, so we've got
That's
both
super cool.
automated NPCs that like they have their own selection of abilities that they'll just use on their own, and they'll have ones where you can actually like tell them what to do.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Eye the Beholder 2 did that like once or twice. I think you could find some little guy and then he like knocks your party out and runs away with your stuff or something.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think we're right now. You can't find anyone, you know, in the as you're journeying along. We've explored. It's not quite the same thing, but as far as unlocking certain classes, we've explored different conditions that might have to happen to unlock them. But I don't know if that'll happen either. Like with the Houndmaster, we thought for a while like you'd have to fight rabid dogs until you've tamed one, and then basically. And then use that dog to create a Houndmaster, and so it's a whole different method for recruiting. But that sounds like something that might, get pushed into the early access wish list.
Yeah.
Plus, it's also like, I mean, we had talked about like, okay, if you want to do Houndmaster, then the guy who gets bit by the rabid dog, who's at like less than 3% health or whatever it is, then becomes the Houndmaster. But you lose the class that he was, which in practice kind of starts to fall apart. So,
Yeah.
I think it could be a cool quest type, like Lost Adventure, and then you finish the quest, and then he gets added to your roster when you go back to town.
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, get around it that way.
It would be fun to have we've always talked to the classes as being a form of loot. Like when you go to recruit them, it's exciting to see like, oh, a grave robber's in town. I've been waiting for another one, and so that would be kind of a cool extension of that. And also one thing we are consciously doing is we're We're not trying to balance every class actually exactly. So we have some other mechanisms in the game to sort of encourage you to play with different classes, even if you find like Crusader is the best all-around front rank guy for your style. There's reasons why you're going to want to use other ones, but
Cool.
I think it's, you know, for us the people are more important even than the loot, which is just kind of one of our creative driving forces of the game. So you should go into that tavern and get excited when you see a recruit you want.
So
So I got a question for us, actually, if that's cool.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Time-wise, man, like how fast do you bang out those characters, and how many poses and bits and pieces are involved in like a, I don't know, like a mid-level enemy, you know, like not a boss, but not like a simple mob.
So I've actually been getting faster and faster, which has been good. The bad guys, are obviously more complex because we're doing like full bodies one, and then I'm kind of having to paint them in a way that I can tear them apart and have a bunch of little pieces that Jason can animate. I think the last one, actually the one you guys saw that when we were testing out yesterday, that kind of, this is a little bit of spoiler for people, a little bit of thing they can try and figure out what this means, but that kind of like mushroom creature guy, he ended up taking me, I guess about a day.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty fast. I was pretty happy with that. And the smaller, like the NPCs and stuff like that, they've been taking me about a half a day, I think, which is good because we have like 70.
Oh my god.
That are Kickstarter backers. So there's 70 just there, and then we're gonna have to do some more for special NPCs that we can't figure out how to use the backer ones for. So
Wow.
we've got some work ahead of us.
So purely out of my own selfish interest, like how do you keep your pace up? Like how do you sustain like two small enemies a day every day for like, I don't know, however long it takes on your schedule, like 3 weeks or however long you have to do it.
Right.
How do you keep that energy up and keep moving
forward?
forward?
I guess okay. I'm lucky and unlucky on that. In that I actually do 2 jobs right now. So my other job is I teach how to make games for a private college in San Diego here. And,
oh, cool.
Yeah, I've been teaching for about 8 years on how to make games. So the nice thing about teaching is that it doesn't take up, it's not a full-time, 40 hours a week. So then what I try and do is make sure that anytime I'm able to work on this, I work as fast as possible. And then, I have a bit of a break from this type of thing when I go to teach. So.
Right. So it's kind of refreshing to bounce back and forth.
Yeah. It's
That's
also
cool.
a little bit of a headache, just because you are bouncing back and forth, but it also, I think, helps me keep up a pace on when I'm actually working on stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I got back from PAX and really kind of hit the wall. Like, I was so used to doing just marketing art, and it was the first time we'd actually settled back down into straight up production, and it took me way longer than it should have for the first character. And then gradually, I've been working my time down as I've kind of gotten used to, like, it's just like hitting the gym. Like, you get used to your workout routine, and you can kind of blitz through it a little bit more quickly. But it's definitely daunting if I look at the big picture, just the sheer amount of like content that I have to churn out with my eyeballs and wrist.
Don't look at the big picture.
Yeah,
Keep
it's
your
a
head down.
horrible idea.
Also, Chris, didn't you work through the problem of trying to replicate the original characters you did?
Well, yeah, it was weird because I did them so long ago, and I'm just a little bit more familiar with the style. And yeah, it's like the new guys kind of look like a little bit more high fidelity, and I was kind of agonizing over, how much is too much. And then I'd show it to these guys, and they're like, I don't know, they look the same to me. I'm like, they're not the same.
No, the new ones looked better.
Well, don't say that, because now I got to go back and.
We actually have had some of the same. I mean, I think that's got to just be part of creating almost any game. But I think, especially for an indie game where it's a small team, and there's just a learning curve on some of this stuff. So we've had the same thing with some of our robots and stuff, we go back and look at the first ones. We're like, oh, man, could have made that a little bit, animate. Like, could have had some other pieces on there to animate. Could have done a bunch of different things,
Yeah. But I mean, you wouldn't have known. You wouldn't get to where you are now if you hadn't gone through those early steps. It's kind of catch-22.
Definitely.
So the question bus made another stop.
Okay.
Will Darkest Dungeon have a fast forward mode like the new XCOM? It kind of does right now. We have debug controls that kind of speed the game up and slow it down.
Fast forward mode. Well, no, the games are structured differently. I mean, there's no passage of time that's happening that you're not in control of. In other words, there's no ticking clock or anything like that. So it's all turn-based. I don't know if that answers it, or is he?
Yeah, I'm personally not familiar with the new XCOM fast forward mode.
Or I might actually be thinking of original XCOM where, you're kind of waiting for an alien ship to come, so sometimes you speed up the time.
I think it must be the same thing. I've played both the original and the new one, and I that's the only thing I can think of is the time going by waiting for aliens.
Yeah. And so in this case, you're either on the quest, so you're moving through the corridor fighting people in turn-based combat, or you go back to town and you're putting guys in the tavern or in the church or hiring new recruits or upgrading guys. And then all that stuff is like it's not actually like a time-based thing. In terms of real-world passage of time. So, like, let's say you throw someone in the tavern to drink, then what happens is when you go on your next quest, that represents the passage of a certain amount of time. You come back and some of their stress is healed and maybe they're drunk, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we measure time in your expeditions, basically, not in minutes or hours. So how many runs have you gone on while this guy was sitting at the bar?
It is originally...
Yeah.
Originally, we wanted it to be really tied to real time, and it's odd because, that's definitely a mechanic that's being used a lot in, social games, and that wasn't our intent because it was never envisioned to be a free-to-play game in the sense like we weren't using time as a gate to force you to pay, like as a paywall. We just thought the use of time would accomplish what we wanted to, which was like you can't always use your favorite guys all the time because that's like sending the same soldiers on a mission over and over and over with no break, and it's just nobody can take it. But we eventually realized that was just going to become a complicating factor that would actually stop people from having fun, and we can accomplish the same result by using expeditions as time. Because what we didn't actually ever want to limit how much you could play per day of real time. We just wanted to make sure that we forced you into hard decisions, and so we found other systems to do that.
I think I have to go on a little bit of a rant about the free-to-play model and the changes that creates. It's interesting to see like how it subverts like some basic game mechanic rules, like and I guess real-life rules like units of scale. Like they want you to come back so often that if you have something and like if you're trying to buy more and it takes longer, you should get it for a better cost, right? Like in a normal, like if you buy a whole bulk of something, it should cost you less. But it seems like in free-to-play stuff now, they want you to come back and touch things so often. It's like the one that's the best for you is the one that takes the least amount of time, so they just get you to come back all the time. I think it's real interesting to see like game mechanics change so much based on like the distribution model,
Well, it's different goals because most free-to-play games, and I worked in the space for a while. They want you for multiple sessions a day because, and that kind of goes back to because when some of the revenue is driven on ad base, they want to serve you different ads and things. But and so you end up designing mechanics to try to get people to come. They don't want you to necessarily play an hour straight. They want you to play 4 sessions of 15 minutes, and that's not actually universally true for all the games right now. But it's interesting. And what they want you to avoid is, say, downloading a game and playing the hell of it for one day and then getting sick of it and burning out. They'd rather it takes you, a certain amount of time. But it's when your goals. I mean, game design is all about trying to accomplish a goal, and if your goal isn't to provide the most enjoyability, and this actually isn't even like I'm not trying to harp on them, but if your goal is how can I get people to check in 8 times a day, that's a very different goal than, you know, how can I make sure people are having the most fun that they want to have. So it's like, you know, if I say design a car that carries the most people, it's going to look different than if I say design a car that, you know, gets from A to B as fast as possible.
Yeah, definitely.
It is weird. I'm glad to be back in the normal space for a while, to be honest. I just like focusing on, and especially, you know, being, you know, inspired from nostalgic games. I mean, it's just kind of like the business model there isn't broken for what we're trying to accomplish, which is selling a niche product to people who are super excited about what that is. And you do sacrifice maybe some potential revenue and things, but we never wanted to run into the problem of people feeling like, oh, you're not giving me enough loot from the chest. You just want me to pay to get more. You know?
Well,
You know,
especially
like,
for our game, that'd be. I mean, it wouldn't.
right.
Not that we ever entertained doing free to play or microtransactions. It was never on our minds. But it wouldn't even work because to make a difficult game and then to charge people money to bypass the difficulty just it would inherently feel abusive and cheap. So to make a really hard, challenging kind of game that tested you, we needed to make sure that, you know, it was a single purchase.
Yeah, if Dark Souls allowed you to buy souls,
Buy souls, right?
you would no longer like they could change no other part of the game, and immediately I think people would say, "This is a really poorly designed game with huge paywalls."
Yeah, but what if you could get those souls from the other players? You got Chubbs buying souls, and I'm invading, taking their souls.
Yeah, it's cool.
We actually,
Dark Souls.
since we started out thinking that this might be mobile, and you know, knowing the price point that we'd have to go for, we were thinking about having some of the free-to-play kind of model things to it, and that's one of the things that we were happy about going away from when we decided to make it a PC and Mac game, is because we were having a hard time creating a game that we thought would be fun, and at the same time, you know, have the free-to-play kind of model stuff in there.
Yeah, that's cool. There is, you know, there's definitely been a lot of innovation in those spaces, you know, despite the fact, like, they get harped on. I mean, it's interesting to see the different business models, and then you've got games like Hearthstone that I think are doing it fairly well in terms of being pretty friendly to the players that aren't paying anything. But yeah, it's just, it's a constant thing in your mind then of balancing between, am I giving too much? Like in a game like what we're doing, you know, we have to make sure we don't give so much stuff that it just makes, you know, takes all the tension out of the game. But we never have to figure out where the paywall is. You know.
Yeah.
We got enough other problems to solve.
Yeah, seriously. Limbertus wants to know. Oh, sorry, Kira, I'm totally stealing your thunder. You can.
Well, let's do that one. Will there be a memorial for the character loss? Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually there will be, and that's kind of, you know, just something for the classic roguelikes that's so awesome. And because we do have permadeath, you know, we want you to be able to relive what happened to them a little bit. Like so and so went down and then got depressed, and you know this happened or whatever. But so yeah, eventually some sort of a gravestone / journal would be cool.
The ideal version of that, which I'm not saying that we're doing, but I just dream about it, is like you could like, you know, copy their history to your clipboard and, like, I don't know, make a Facebook post, or, you know, like get something you could share around with your friends. So if you had a particularly kind of, one guy had a really rough life, it might be kind of funny to pass that around. And
I mean, one thing. Oh, sorry.
No, that's it.
One thing I would like to do, because I named all my XCOM characters after my close friends, is send them the message when they die to be like, this is what your character was able to do.
Yeah, that's totally cool. And yeah,
Like
you're going to be able to name your characters in Darkest Dungeon as well. I'm assuming you can do that in Starcrawlers too.
Yeah, definitely.
Are weapons class specific, guys?
For us?
Yeah.
They didn't specify, so I guess that's a question for both.
For Starcrawlers, no, they are not. If you want to put a melee weapon on your soldier or equip him with pistols, you can totally do that. It may not be the wisest choice, but it might be fun.
That's cool.
And what about Darkest Dungeon?
For us, yes, they are. Like, our characters are kind of meant to be sort of iconifications or archetypes. So the Crusader's always going to have his two-handed sword. Like the Occultist won't be able to have like a sledgehammer suddenly.
Cool. Another question. This one's for Darkest Dungeon. They were specific. How many of each class can you have? Are we going to limit that?
No current plans to limit it. I think it'll be a bit. We might limit your total roster size. So if you decide to have 8 Crusaders, that just might sort of limit how many other slots you have. But we encourage you to kind of make it as much as possible according to your own strategy. And like I mentioned, there's some other mechanics, not to be too vague booking about it, but where you're going to want to have lots of different classes. But I think it's totally cool if you love a certain class and want to make sure you have enough that you've always got one ready to go, even if one's in the brothel and one's in the church and one's getting their paranoia burnt off and all these things.
Does that work for you guys in Starcrawlers? Could I have 2 Cyber Ninjas, or is it like you've got one of each class kind of thing, and you just pick?
You've got one of each class,
right?
So when you've got your Cyber Ninja, that's your Cyber Ninja. You take them with you, mainly because we're focusing on 8 characters, and we want it to feel like each one brings a skill set that's unique. So you've got to decide, if you're going to be running on a kick down the door and kill everything mission, do you want to bring your heavy hitters, or are you going to try and bring stealthy characters and play it differently?
Yeah, that's cool. This guy looks awesome, Asa.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm glad you think so. I was a little in the weeds for a little while, but
No, I really like it. It's fun to see the colors and the blending and stuff.
It's so 3D looking. I miss rendering.
well, you might not miss it if you had to do an entire game with it.
No, if I had to do it, I would hate it. I would.
It's funny. Rendering is something I'm not a big fan of rendering in general. Like, I don't think of what I end up doing as like super rendered. I was actually just looking at some fantasy illustrators today, and they, to do fantasy like book covers and stuff, they want it so rendered. My friend and I talked about like why maybe, and I think maybe it's because like it's such an imaginary thing that lots of people love to see it as realistic as they can possibly think of it, But so many people I like, they don't render as much as they just indicate and stuff, and I'm not that good at doing that. But what I thought was interesting about this is just then now I've got to render tons of stuff. So
Yeah.
oh well.
I like that mid ground where you're indicating and you've got like a clear sense of material and solidity, but you're not like browbeating people with like, crazy bounce light on everything, and everything is just sort of really softened out, like that fantasy stuff. I don't know how those guys make money. I mean, they do. You can make money being like a top end fantasy illustrator. We can make money being a top end anything, but it takes so long to get to that level of fidelity. Like it takes them like a week of painting,
Yeah, I once went to a conference and I was watching, I won't say his name, but it was this illustrator and he paints in oils, and he was painting the face, and he was painting with a 0 size brush, and he was painting in the eye, and he was painting it with like the smallest little tiny little blending patches, and he was like, this is the part that I enjoy the most. This is the part that's the most fun for me. And I was like, because he was doing the face, and I was like, that doesn't look fun at all.
Yeah.
I want to take big strokes. I want to, make a mess.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Oh, he got old there for a second.
Oh, and you can.
He took the color out of the hair, so it went white. I'm just gonna assume that the skull's looking me in the eyes as well.
Yeah, we can. I'll add a little bit of an eye to the skull too, so it.
Ooh, trippy.
It can be a little.
Oh, nice. Spooky. That's actually really is super cool.
Awesome. Totally pops now. Elite, unique versions of the class. For us, the eliteness is something that you work towards. Like, you're not going to recruit like a super awesome, mentally steeled character right out of the gate, because that kind of defeats the purpose. Like Darkest Dungeon for us is about like asking players to make the best of an imperfect situation and kind of accompany these characters and build them up over time. So if you have elite characters, it's because you're an elite player, basically. You would have worked up to that.
The joke version of this painting would be the eyes looking at each other.
It's like his ventriloquist puppet.
Well, this is like supposed to be a Starcrawler's version, so like we have a lot of emoticons that pop up above our people.
Oh,
so
sweet.
We'll do it later.
Aww.
That's pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah, you did a great job.
I
Yeah,
heart
man.
the occult.
Sweet. All right, we should probably think about wrapping up here. Yeah, I've spent a good couple hours.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you guys
Yeah.
are up for it, we should do it again sometime.
Let's do it again.
Cool.
Here you
I'll
can
promise
drive.
to finish up my painting in the next couple weeks or so.
Yeah, me too.
That's rad.
And then, yeah, I guess we can just post them on our sites and pass them around, and anybody in the stream who watched can get a hold of it that way. Maybe in a backer update or something. We'll throw it
Well,
out.
Watch the Twitters.
And we'll
Yep.
definitely post it on our forum because, you know, we
have
have
one.
one.
Yeah. Ouch.
I love it because whatever excuses we had are completely invalid now because we all kickstarted at the same time, and you guys have forums. So
Well, let's
we're-
just say this. I do want to say when we were about to do our Kickstarter and we had planned on a day and everything, and then right before we did ours, yours popped up, and actually we had a local indie developer who's the biggest name in the local industry here tell us that we might think about not going at the same time to go against you guys, not to go against you and everything, you know, but you guys helped us out a lot. I mean, mentioning us, our backers went up every time, and it's been really great, so I just want to say thanks.
Hell yeah.
You know,
Oh,
we're
man.
kind of in the same boat. Well, not even kind of. We even have like the token young guy on each team, and it feels like what's the point of being indie if you can't kind of help each other out and work together, especially when you're trying to do RPGs from the past in a modern way.
Mhm. Yeah, there was too much synergy and, you know, in terms of just overlap on what we're trying to do, and also you know, we've been getting help from people, and including you guys have been nice to mention us a lot, and I don't know, that's a really fun part of what we're doing is knowing that there's room in people's game library for more than one game. So you know, I think it doesn't. It's nice to not have, you know, not treat it as a competitive situation. It's just it's way cooler to get inspired from what other people are doing and compare notes. And I think that kind of community in the whole indie development scene is really, really strong. You know, sharing information, and we've learned so much, you know, from other games that had kickstarted before, and so that's super cool. And you guys are doing something awesome. I mean, that's really what it comes down to is. A lot of people are constantly asking for shout outs, and we try to do them where we can, but you know, at the end of the day, we also want to make sure we shout out games that, you know, we think are cool.
really awesome. And,
Yeah.
Anyway, love in concluded.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks to everyone who checked out the stream. I'm sure we'll do it again in the future. And yeah, thanks Asa for doing this amazing art.
Oh,
Mhm.
Thank you,
It
guys.
looks wicked.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, have a great night, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Okay. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks,
Take
everybody.
care, everyone.